tutorial time, we started with our bag, and we fused. Remember, we fused the little vinyl onto it, so that's why it's shiny. And you should have 2 pieces that are 2 inches by 8 inches, and then you should have 2 pieces that are 6 inches wide by 10 inches, and then this piece is 8 inches wide by 10 inches. So now we're going to make this piece fit this piece, because there's that 2-inch difference. So we got to put a pleat in, and then we're going to sew the band on, and then we're going to prepare our zipper today. So the goal is today I'm going to show you how to put your pleat in, which I have the pleat on the one side and I have my band sewn to one side, and then I have trimmed up the lining so that it will now fit with my outer piece, okay, because my outer piece is now 1 piece. That's why it's cut larger, because we have to trim. And then I will show you how to prep your zipper. So your zipper looks like this, so we'll have a nice finished zipper. This is kind of a scary part, so let's get going, because it's going to take us a few minutes. And I'm going to walk around here. We're not going to sit down at the sewing machine for reals yet. We're going to come over here, and let me make sure I've got my iron on, because I'm going to need that in a second. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to find the center of my front piece here. So the easiest thing for me to do is to fold this in half and match my edges, and I'm going to finger press right here, and I'm just going to use my nail to kind of give me a good crisp press right there, and I should have a little pleat. I don't know if you can see that very well right there, but it's right there. Okay, now I'm going to take my seam gauge. This is an ancient tool to me. I don't use it very often. In fact, seldom, except for when I'm making these bags. And I have it set at my 1-inch mark right here. And I am going to take the edge of my seam gauge, and I am going to put it on that fold line that's right there. Okay, and actually I'm going to take this part, that will make it easier, and put it on that fold line, because I need to pin 1 inch out from the center. I've got 2 pins, 1 inch out from the center, and put my pin in right there. And then I'm going to flip it and do the other side as well. Again, that little tab, that 1 inch on that seam, that fold, not that seam, that fold that I made, and then put my pin in right there on the edge. Okay, so now I have my, oh, I didn't know they were so color coordinated. I have these pins, and I need to bring the pin, and I'm going to fold the pin so that it comes into that little crease that I creased a minute ago, right? So it's going to look like this. And I'm going to do the same on this other side. And this is kind of a little fiddly sometimes. So just make the fabric behave, because you are the boss. Okay. Now I'm going to come over here to my pressing mat. And I find that it's easier when I have this laid down, and I left my other piece over there, but we're good. We're good. And I'm going to press this in. Now there's 2 options you can do at this point. If you want to keep your pleat tucked all the way down like that, feel free to do that. I like my pleat a little bit open, and it tends to want to open up just a little bit anyway. And can you hand me that piece, please? Thank you. Camera guy knew what I was looking for. So see how I have this already is opened right here? The thing you want to make sure you do is match your piece so that they're the same, because you don't want to have your seam be different, if that makes any sense. Because if you're different, you're not going to line up with your bag, right? So usually it's easier to do without having this piece sewn on, but I had to do that for us today. And we're just a little bit, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to have it be just about like this, and I want to make sure when I look at the bottom, let me spin this a little bit down here, I want to try and get this part here, these two, as even as possible. So if this one looks a little big, I'll pull it out just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to hold it in place, and I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to iron it towards the top. That seems to be the way to work for me, and I'm going to get a good crisp press on that. And then at this point I will take my band piece and I'm going to lay it on top of here and make sure that I match, and I do. If we take the inch on both sides, that's pulling in that 2-inch excess, and we're perfect. So now I'm going to pick this up carefully. I've still got my pleat, so it'll look like this on the back. Let me do it this way so you can kind of see what I've got here, right? There's my pleat. You can see that pleat there. Now I'm going to take my pins and I'm going to pin the band to the pleat there in the center. And I always start from the center and work out. And you don't need a whole lot of pins. And just get your edges even. That's the hardest part sometimes, is getting that fabric to cooperate and get your edges even. Okay, edges even. Make sure they're even here. And then we'll go sit down and we're going to sew it. Now, at this point, you have an option. I like to do about a 3/8 inch seam. At this point, you can do, the rest of the bag will be using a 1/4 inch seam, but a 3/8 inch seam works really well. So I'm going to wake up my machine. My needle at 3/8 inch seam, the needle's in the center, and if I just sew from the edge to the center, that's going to give me my 3/8 inch seam. You can choose to, what do I want to say? You can choose to do a tack stitch if you want. I'm not going to, because the edges on this seam will be locked in the other seam when we go around the outside of the bag. Okay, bring my pins over and we'll sew. And I've grabbed a thread. That's why that's tucking right there. Okay. Just sew along here. Simple, simple, simple. And I usually do set the needle down. I did not do that on this one today, but don't ever sew over your pins if you can help it. Okay, because they can break or bend your needle, all that. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Then we're going to take it over to the iron and press it up away. Now we're going to do the same thing like I do when I do all of my sewing. You're going to heat set that seam, and then you're going to press it up and away just like that. Okay. Then we want to do, and I'm not going to do it today because I think you'll know how to do that. You want to do a top stitch along, so you get that top stitch down, so that seam will stay placed through all of your wear and tear. Now we need to trim the back of the other piece of our lining. And I have, because we're doing 3 different bags, I have 3 different colors of zippers. So you notice I had a peach one, and now I also will show you how to adjust the size on that in just a second, so you have the you'll understand what I'm talking about, and you'll be ready to sew it all together next week. Okay, so I'm just going to lay this. I want to lay it wrong sides together just because I don't want the slippy of the vinyl. And I'm going to take just my small ruler here, and now this is where I'm going to trim off all my excess and all my sides. Okay, just like this. Super easy to do. And then you'll have your 2 fronts and your 2 backs ready to go. And we'll be ready to sew that all together next week. Okay, And yes, it kind of makes a little A shape, and you might have a little bend right here where you might need to kind of just adjust, and you'll see what I mean, because I'm going to do that in just a second, because I'm going to take it right here, and then I need to kind of move it a little bit on that side right there, just like that. Okay, so now I have my fronts and my linings ready, and I have my zipper ready, but you don't have your zipper ready, so we need to talk about the zipper. Okay, so I want to measure the top. This should still be 8 inches. So let's just make sure that we are 8 inches. And actually, I'm not quite sure, but it does. It pulls in to about 8 or 7 and 7/8 of an inch when we sew it. I don't know why, but I found that that does that. We need to trim our zipper down, and this is scary for people. Don't be afraid. We're going to trim the zipper down, and then we're going to make a tab. So the first thing I did was make my tab, and this was, how big of a piece was this? This was just one of our scraps. It's about 1 3/4 inches, and I found that this was, some people on their tutorials, they'll give you a little bit narrower of a strip, and I find that's really hard and fiddly to work with. So 1 3/4 inches, this was just from the scraps, and I am matching my what I'm putting on my zipper to what the band is on the bag. So this will go to one of the other bags. So I simply pressed this in half. I'm not going to do this today because we don't have all that time, but you're going to press it in half, and then you're going to press each side into the center like that, and then you're going to fold it in half again, and that will give you no raw edges when we sew this to our zipper. So now we need to subtract 1/2 inch from our measurement of our band. So we have 7 7/8. Take it down. I'm going to round it up to 8 because that's easier for me to do the math, and then I'll take a little bit extra off. So take it to 7 1/2. I'm probably going to take it to 7 1/2, 7 5/8, right? I'm not going to count it. But anyway, this is how you fix your zipper. So I am going to cut, let me turn my zipper this way. I didn't realize it was going to blend so well into my mat. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about on my end. I just need to make sure that I have enough room up here on the upper part of my tape, right? So my zipper pulls clear up here. I am going to cut down here in a minute. Before you do that, we always have to open our zipper because I don't want to cut off here or I have ruined my zipper, right? But I am going to cut off the metal part down here. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm like, where did my rotary cutter go? And I'm just going to cut that. So I'm going to make that square. And that's the scary part, is cutting that. Now if you have a metal zipper, you can't do that. But this is a nylon zipper, so I just did that. Okay, now I'm going to open this up and slide this down. And I'm going to turn this way, and this is where it gets a little fiddly. So we know, I said 7 1/2, but we know it's a little bit more that we need to take off. So I'm actually going to take off, instead I'm going to take it to an extra 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and I'm going to bring my this is where it gets fiddly because you've got your ruler and you've got your tape, and we're going to just cut right here and get that off. And now my zipper is ready to put my tabs on. So we're going to go back to the machine and sew this on. I'm only going to do one side, and I'm going to do the tricky side because obviously this side that's already sewn together, that's going to be easy to do. This part up here where your zipper pull has pulled away, that's the trickier part. So we're going to get your edges together, and you're going to just set your zipper right in there like that. And I like a longer piece also because this gives me room to to sew off and on. Okay, I'm going to come in and I'm going to move my needle, and I might have to play with it a little bit, but that seems to be, if I remember correctly when I did my other one, that's where it was. Now my needle is over here, and I want the edge of my little tab here to be with my presser foot, and I want the needle to be almost to the edge. In fact, I'm going to move it one more over right there. Okay, and now I'm just going to sew, and I'm going to take my time because I need to keep these together. And you're going to hear it go kunky kunky when it goes through the, that one didn't, when it goes through the teeth. And I'm going to come here, sew a couple stitches off. This is why I like needle down, so I'm going to put the needle down on. Now I'm going to activate my reverse, and I'm just going to go backwards. And again, just taking my time. Okay. And then I'm going to take the reverse off and go one more time across the front to just really reinforce that, just like that. Okay, and now that's done, and all I have to do is trim up the two sides right there and then sew my tape onto the other end, and it will look like this. Let me get my fingers out of the way so you can see. It will look like that. So next week we'll install the zipper and we'll sew the bag together, and you'll have a bag done. If you're following along, if you want to wait and see how it all comes together next week, then you can start your own. That would be great. But I want you to have a happy Valentine's Day, have a happy Friday, and leave your comments about your Halloween, I don't know where that came from, except for the table runners, your Valentine's Day traditions in the comments below, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.